So I'll just do kind of a quick introduction of me, and then we can get into sort of our story behind joining Wada. So me myself, I grew up here in the United States, where we are right now. Um, uh, Kind of growing up, we did live in England for a little bit, but mostly grew up here. I went to University of Denver, and then had an opportunity to study abroad in Lyon. I went to Institut National des Sciences Appliquées, INSA de Lyon, and that's where our paths crossed. It was at an engineering school. So my year abroad there, I was focusing on kind of material sciences, to then later come back to the US and finish my degree in physics. So, that's where our paths crossed. And since then, dealing with some long distance and then coming together here in the US and living a little bit in Cameroon as well. And, finding the balance. It's been good. We're actually moving back very soon to Cameroon, and we're excited for some of the work we're doing there. My professional experience is a lot of education, as well as, I guess, administrative kind of work to pay the bills between jobs, but education specifically in math. And the developer has been pushing me into Haskell, so I've gotten some lambda calculus down and getting started in there. So yeah, there's just kind of the quick intro, and I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Yep. Futio Manfo here, born in Cameroon. I mostly grew up there, and got a chance to move to Italy in 2008 to pursue, my education in computer science. Spent like a few years in Italy, and got a chance to go to France to spend a year there, an exchange year, and that's where I met Megan, my wife and partner. Yeah, so we went back. I went back to Italy, where I, continue my education, and we then joined as a family in the United States, where we started in Denver, where I was working as a software developer, but I didn't start as a software developer. I remember when I got here, I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? My English really like low level. So I kind of started there, trying to figure out how to adjust my English. Was looking for something sophisticated in terms of like an English class, but it was kind of too expensive. Couldn't afford it at the time. So what we had to do, I was working as a valet in a hospital. I love that, running around all day long, helping, people who needed like some sort of treatments. Whether it's raining or it's sunny, we were there helping people, and that really felt great. So after that, I got, with my connection at the hospital, I was able to find a job in a restaurant and working as a valet. So that's what I was doing while I was like trying to
valet and dishwasher.
Yeah, to refine my English. And at home, I was pushing with my IT stuff, making sure I didn't get too rusty there. So once I finally felt like I was comfortable with English and I was integrated enough, I started applying for jobs, and fortunately I got one with BLM, Bureau of Land Management. I started there as a junior software developer. Well, I don't know if I was a junior back then, but anyways, that's what they called me. So push really hard and work on a couple of projects there. And then in 2014, well, that was way back even before we started working there. We started thinking about how we can go back to Cameroon and really, share what we've been learning over the years, different way of thinking, and to bring that back home and see how we can use what we have locally and build on top of that, adding all this knowledge that we have acquired like throughout the years traveling. I consider myself incredibly lucky. The fact that I was able to go out and see other cultures and other people. This is, yeah. So we got to Cameroon with a wonderful a lot of projects, and naive as we were back then, we didn't know really anything about like the financial system. So we had this wonderful idea. And we formed a group called Diaspora GIF, a group of like, there's a lot of people in that group. And what we really wanted to do was to create a platform where, with two components. One component was going to be the remittance. A lot of people from the diaspora send money back home. So we wanted to give them like a platform where they could, instead of sending money back home, they would, pay for services directly. And we would allow like local business people to expose those services on our platform. And the people from the diaspora would pay for them. And that way we could remove the middleman, right? Like Western Union, MoneyGram, because back then we realized that there were so many issues with them in terms of like high fees, in terms of like the security, like not being really reliable. I remember having to get off work and run to Western Union, send some money to my brother, then run back to work just to get there and get a phone call saying, oh, we can complete your transaction for some security reasons. And I'm like, okay, tell me what's the thing? How can I improve next time?
Reason?
And they go, well, it's internal. We can't tell you. While this is happening, my brother or my relative, I'm saying but I think this is something that happens to a lot of people, are sitting there in Africa and they need that help, right? And that money that you worked, you earn that money in a hard way, and you're trying to send it back home to really sustain your relatives, and you're not allowed to do it. So to me, that was like, okay, yeah. So that's one of the reason. The other reason is very often when we send that money back home, people in the process of like collecting it get hurt. Like, what's the right word here? Like,
well, I mean, imagine, there's a center where you can go and pick up funds. So that's, going to be a target. People sort of looking at, oh, who's going in there? I know they're going to come out with something. So that's kind of another one of these risks that we're like, we need to just come up with a better solution to this whole remittance system.
Yeah. So, and that's how we thought about like one component of the platform, solving those issues, through paying directly for services, and then adding like a new component here, which would be like a follow-up, right? So it's not just like sending money, but you have to have some visibility on what that money was used for. Yeah. So the second component of the platform was going to be a forum or a blog where people come together and brainstorm ideas and then come up with solution and then implement them. So a little bit kind of what Project Catalyst has today in that mindset. So then we got to Cameroon with these great ideas, with a wonderful business plan, and we started like pushing, working on it. And then we realized that as software developers, we weren't ready. So that's the first thing that we realized. And so we started like really focusing on getting up to speed in terms of like architecting big systems and also implementing them. So that's the first thing we did. Then the second thing, as we were refining our business plan and working on our skills, we realized that our financial model wasn't adding up. And I remember a lot of people like laughing at us, like, oh my goodness, where do you think you are with a 1% or 0.5% fee? And you thinking about using the Visa network, this just doesn't make any sense, right? Because when you make a transaction through the Visa and MasterCard network, usually, I mean, they're cutting like somewhere around like 2 to 3%. But that didn't answer what we were trying to solve, because we wanted really like to create a community, right? Well, a lot of people who are making small transactions, but with very, very small fees, almost non-existent. So, and once we realized that, we started like researching about like money and what, this thing that we play with every day, but we don't really understand how it's created. And we went into the rabbit hole. It was like crazy what we discovered. And in that process, I think we changed forever, because that's also how we learn about like Bitcoin, blockchain, and Cardano, and all of that, and functional programming. So there's a lot that we discovered, and we were like, whoa, this is the solution to many of our issues. So that's a little bit about me. I hope it gives you.
Well, I know, and that kind of, it introduces sort of to like, that was our Diaspo gift. And we actually got quite far with that, before we had the notion of, blockchain at all. We really got into making a viable financial model that would work. And we came up with like, a 40-page business plan. And we're ready. And then someone, mentioned, have you guys thought about using, Bitcoin to do this, or, whatever it was at the time. And, that made us just like step back and say, what is this? Like getting in the rabbit hole, right? How can we approach this differently? So for the last, little while, we've been thinking, okay, what do we want to really do here? We want to create, what we want to do is uplift local communities. We don't want to come in and sort of like create our own system and just, break that. We want to get in the ground, find those people who are already doing these things and help uplift them, give them, access to kind of a network. Eventually down the line, enable a way for people abroad to then contribute back and, and uplift them in that way, make them competitive on a global scale. So how we decided to start approaching that from Diaspo Gift is from the ground up. So, we're thinking about approaching this on the most fundamental level of agriculture. We have some land in Cameroon that we are starting to develop on. We're going to start sort of with our first phase being offering agriculture projects, food to the local community, and partnering with people on the ground there. Because one thing you forgot to mention in your introduction is, your heavy background in farming as well as IT. So starting kind of to build that, and in parallel, we're like, okay, well, down the line, we know that blockchain technology is going to come in with our long-term solution. We're going to need to introduce this into the population, get them on board, so that down the line, when we come up with, the answer, they're not kind of hesitant to join. So we're like, okay, well, what we want to do is like, while we're starting this farm, we're going to also start an IT hub. And that's where we met Mercy, kind of like diving into that. And we're just like, wow, our goals are so aligned, let's just do this whole thing together. And that's, I guess that's the quickest way of saying it.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to add a little bit more to the part where we met, Mercy and Josh. It was actually really interesting because over the years, when I learned about Cardano, and I was into this functional programming thing, the whole paradigm, switching the paradigm, I almost felt like a kid, a baby, like starting to walk again, right? Like I couldn't believe that, having spent 7+ years as a Java developer, that I would come across a programming language that would shake my world, like in such a way that Haskell and functional programming did. So since then, since I discovered functional programming, I had been like going back and trying like to really kind of like clear up my mind with like some concept that I learned over the years that, in my opinion, were not like really necessary. So and starting with this new path on functional programming, and I was out there and looking for a community. I mean, I knew a little bit about Project Catalyst, but wasn't really interested into it. I was focusing on actions right on the ground, and so I was out there on Discord, Telegram, like looking, searching, and complaining about the fact that I actually lived in Denver a few years ago, and I didn't know anything about Cardano until I moved to Cameroon, and complaining about the fact that I lost my chance. And if I had knew it back then, I would just have gone to Charles' door and knocked at it. I mean, I would have done it.
He would have.
And yeah, so I mean, I love going straight to solutions. If I know that you can get me my solution, I will go straight to you. So I was complaining about that, and Mercy, I don't know, I just feel like Mercy has her hands everywhere, on social media. Really good at that. So she got me. She got me there. She read my message and she reached out to me. But the funny thing is, this happened on December, I think 24th. So I was on, I was on Telegram. And then I didn't look back until January 21st or something like that. So a month later. So I just dropped my message there and I kind of ignored it. And when I came back a month later, I saw Mercy message, trying to reach out to me. First, I thought she was from Cardano. I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. Someone from, and as we started like talking, there was this like, just a connection, right? Like when something that as a human being, I really love, the way I connect to people, it's not just, visual, like meaning coming from a culture that, it's like almost, we're talking about energy, right? Magnetism, if I can put it this way, right? So your thoughts actually attract, you're thinking about something and you're attracting it, whether you like it or not, on a quantum level, if we can touch on that. But so we had a wonderful conversation that day, our first conversation, and I ran in, I told my wife, this is the person. We found her. We found what we needed. We found the person that we needed, and that's how it started. And I can tell you, like, since then, we've been like working 24/7 and nonstop, and it's just enjoyable to have such a great team, people that are passionate, and so that's